Boker Tov, Shavua Tov. Today's daf is daf Mem Zayin in Bava Basra. As we learned for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Asun Batzar V'Shivya, we also learned for Aliyah Shama of my late father, Mori Mordechai Ben Yithiel Meir. We're starting at the fourth line. We said on daf Mem Zayin Amanaf Amar B'Yochnan. Umanein Lo Chazak. We learned that before in the Mishnah that a craftsman who you give your item to, whether it's a tailor or a cleaner or whatever, he can't make a chazaka on it. Of course, he just says it's his because we say prove that you bought it, right? The fact that that it's in his possession doesn't. The fact that he's holding on to it. If he says, I bought it from you, and he has some sort of a proof, fine. But otherwise, we assume he has no chazaka. Ben uman yesh chazaka. What about his son? Does his son have a chazaka? Son has it, and he's the son. His son's not an uman. He's just the son of him. He can make a chazak. He's like anybody else. If you have a wallet in your pocket, presumably it's yours, even though your father was an uman. Similarly, Oris ain't a chazak. We said a sharecropper. The Mishnah said that, right? Mishnah back on Beis, we had all these items that are not a chazak. We discussed them, including an Oris, a sharecropper. The fact that he's on the land, even if he's there for 3 years, it's not a chazaka, right? So we said here we're talking about these people have no chazaka. Even if he's there 3 years, there's no chazaka. Why? Because that's what his normal job is. So whether it's a chazaka of metaltalin, which is a chazaka immediately, you don't need 3 years for that, or it's a chazaka of karka, which you need 3 years for, that only applies to either an uman or an oris, respectively. But their sons can have a chazaka. It's no big chiddush in that. Gazlan, uben Gazlan ain't a chazaka. But listen to this. A Gazlan has no chazaka. Like we say, he's known to steal this piece of land, or even though we say karka ain't exelis, meaning he has no chazaka, his son also has no chazaka. Now, why is that? We'll see. More ben. So he says, when it comes to a Gazlan, then maybe it's no big chiddush in the case of uman and oris. But in the case of Gazlan, the chiddush is that even a son can't make a chazaka on a field. Let's say ben benoshel Gazlan yesh chazaka, but his grandson could. Now, what's the case? What's the difference here? The Gemara is going to say, "Hey, chidami, what's the case?" When if they're saying, "Listen, the son of the Gazlan says he has a chazaka because he got a yarshin from his father, but his father was a known Gazlan, or we knew his father stole the field. So what's the difference? Afilu hanachnami. So if they're coming to say, "Listen, the reason I have this is because I got it from my father," so then the uman and the oris, right? The uman and the oris, which you say have no chazaka because they're normally working for somebody else, like craftsmen is cleaning your clothes, the sharecropper is taking care of your field. So if either one of their sons says, "I got it from my father," so why is it any better than the father? The father is no chazaka, so the son shouldn't have any chazaka either. So if they're coming with the claim that they got it from their father, they got it from their father. Well, but their father can't have a chazaka. So even the oris, the ben oris, and the ben uman all should not have a chazaka. If they're not coming with the claim of their father, they're just saying, "Listen, okay, my father was an oris, but I didn't get it from him. I bought it myself." If they says, "Listen, I bought it myself. Where's your proof of purchase?" Okay, I have a chazaka. If it's metaltalin, I just have to hold on to it. I could claim I bought it from you, but I could just say it's mine. And if it's because of karka, you can say, he says, "Believe me that I bought it because I've been there for 3 years. That's my proof of purchase. I bought it from you, and my proof of purchase is my 3 years." If we're talking about karka, so afilu ben Gazlan nami. So even the son of a Gazlan also. Rashbam's gears is a little bit different. Rashbam's is el b'taina denafshayu. They're claiming their own. He says specifically, they're not coming with the claim that they got it from their father. Their father couldn't have a chazaka. Claiming themselves, said, "Listen, I bought it from you." So then afilu ben Gazlan also. Why do you say just because a person's not blamed because his father's a Gazlan, so the son of a Gazlan cannot have a claim, "I bought it from you"? Why not? He says, "I didn't get it from my father. My father was a Gazlan." So what's this difference that we say when it comes to an uman or an oris, they don't have a chazaka, but their sons do? Comes to a Gazlan, the Gazlan son has no chazaka either. If he's coming with the claim that I got it from my father, then in all the cases they shouldn't have a chazaka. And if they claim on their own that I bought it from you directly, so the ben Gazlan should have a chazaka. Says Gemara lo tzricha. No, you don't need it. I'll tell you, explain what it is. Amri eidim b'fanenu hodelo. The person who is protesting, the person who says, "Hey, what are you doing on my land? What are you doing with my suit? What are you doing with my item?" There's Adam that he was moted to this kid to the son that it was his. In front of us, he was motive that it was his. Oh, so he says like this. Rashbam explains. Rashbam says here, so the Gemara says, Rashbam's like it's in the middle over there. That they say that what? That since Adam said, they're Adam who said we saw this owner, this protester, admit that it belongs to the son. Okay, so the Ben Uman and the Ben Oris, they say, listen, yes, we have proof, we have Adam here who admit, there's Adam who say that we bought it legitimately. Rashbam, this is Lo Tzricha the Kosa B'Tanis Lebuim. They're coming with the claim they got from their father, but over here, yes, normally with the claim of their father, it's no good because the father doesn't have a chazaka, whether he's an uman, whether he's an oris, whether he's a gazlan, he has no chazaka. But over here, the Adam say in front of us, this protester admitted to the father that he sold it to them, despite the fact that he's an oris, or that he's an uman, or that he's a gazlan. But over here, there's Adam. The sons, all three cases, the sons come with a claim. We have Adam over here who say that they saw this protester admit that their father bought it from this guy. So they're claiming this is, I got it from my father. What's the woman? Got it from my father. So if you got it from your father, but your father has no chazak. Yes, but we have Adam that the protester admitted to my father that he bought it, that my father bought it legitimately from him. Says Rashbam into the wide lines. About 4 lines down. Lo tzricha. The ka'asu b'tanisa davuim. Going to Amar Edom b'fanenu hodla ma'ara lavi and shalelu. Father's motor shemachulem. Hilkach that Ben Aris and Ben Uman. They say, listen, maybe he's telling you the truth. He's telling you the truth because we have Edom that the protester admitted to the father that he bought it from, that the father bought it from them. So the sons say we got it from our father, and our father bought it from this guy. Right? Hi, so why not the Goslan too? Listen to this, you understand? The Goslan has no chazak, right? But a Ben Goslan, we said, also has no chazak. The grandson does, but not the son. Why? If this Ben Goslan has Adam, who say, we saw the protester, the one who's claiming the land now, admit in front of Adam that their father bought it from him. Who was their father? The Goslan. Why isn't he believed? So he says, hi, Afagav the Ode, Nami Lo Mehemen. Even though the protester admitted that the Goslan bought it from him, even though he admitted, that's not an admission. Why? Because he's a tough guy. Rav Kana, like Rav Kana says, Rav Kana, we're going to have it again on the base. And yet the Goslan we assume is a violent man, right? Goslan means he took it forcibly from you, not a Ganef who breaks in the middle of the night, but a burglar, but a Goslan who violently took it from you. So now you say, well, there's Adam that the one who was taken from the protester admitted to the Goslan, that the Goslan bought it from him. Of course, he had to admit. If he wouldn't have admitted, the Goslan would have taken him and his donkey and given it over to the captain of the city, to do hard labor or something like that. Pardon? Yeah. So that's even though no, Adam don't have to worry. But the Adam are saying that this protester, the one who claims it's his land, right? We have the Adam say we saw this protester admit to the Goslan that the Goslan bought it from him legitimately. That's not an admission. And that's even though there's Adam who saw it. You know why? Because of course they were moda. The Goslan was standing there with his club and whatever, and saying, "Look, hey Adam, don't you, protester, don't you admit that I bought it from you?" That's not any proof because he's afraid. So because of that, that's not. So in the case of the Ben Uman or the Ben Oris, so if there's Adam that the protester admitted to the father that the father bought it legitimately, that's good enough. But if the father was a Goslan, his admission doesn't mean anything to the Goslan. The protester admission to the Goslan doesn't mean anything. So the son now of the protester who says, "Oh, I got it from my father," yeah, but your father was a crook. Your father was a crook. Okay, so therefore, we say. So why is the Ben Beno? We'll talk about that. Okay. So so what about the Ben Beno? So Goslan, why is that any better? So Rashbam says, Rashbam goes on to say, Asbatan says, Varesha diktani uman ein lo chazaka, but like there's no Adam over there. So in the ratio we say uman has no chazaka, there's no Adam over there. But in the case of the Ben Goslin and the Ben Oris, then he would have a claim. So now the grandson, he has why does he have his Ben Benoshel Gazan Yesh Chazaka? Why? If he comes with a claim that he got from his father, the time they Avi Yarashi says, I Yarsh my father, but Avi Lavi Gazlan. In other words, why does the grandson of Hassan? He says, I got it from my father, but my father wasn't a Gazlan. The grandfather was a Gazlan. So if the son says, listen, the son of the Gazlan says, well, I got it from my father, and my father has Adim that the protester admitted that he bought it. Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. But the Ben Beno, the grandson, says, I got it from my father. My father was not a Gazlan, so therefore he does have a Chazaka. Amar Rava. In the Gemara, about halfway down on the page. Sometimes even the Ben Beno, even though we said the grandson does have a Chazaka, sometimes even the grandson of the Gazlan has no Chazaka. How's that? We go into Asi B'Tanis Avua. If he says, I got it from my grandfather, right? If he says, I got it from your grandfather, we just explained that your grandfather has no claim, even if he has Adim that the protester admitted to the Gazlan, oh, yeah, you bought it from me. Yeah, you bought it from the gym. It doesn't mean anything. He's afraid of the Gazlan. So therefore, he admitted anything. So if the grandson says, I got it from my father wasn't a Gazlan. But if he says, I got it from my grandfather, then he's also not. Gazlan. He goes, how do we know the guy's a Gazlan? What does he have a sign on him that says Gazlan? Because there's a chazaka. People know that he stole it. There's a chazaka. There's a presumption that he stole it. That's this case. Right? Now, there is a chazaka that he sold this one. Rav Chisda Omer could go into base Ploni, a certain family of known, mafia, Shahargan Nefashos Aliske Moment. It's well known that they kill everybody for money. In other words, the mafia doesn't just have a rule, they take this piece of land. It's known that they take whatever they want. That's what we mean by Gazlan. Now Rashi brings down that we said Pam Shapiro Ben Gazlan. Look at Rashi about halfway down in the wide lines. Even though he doesn't come with his own claim, see if a Ben Gazlan says, "Listen, I bought it myself. I bought it from you. I've been there for 3 years. There's nothing wrong with that." But here we're saying he came with a claim that he got it from his father. Sometimes a Ben Gazlan has a chazaka, even though he doesn't come with his own claim. If he comes with his grandfather's claim, if he says, right, right? If a Ben Gazlan, listen to this, the Ben Gazlan says, I got it from my grandfather, not my father. My father was a mafia, but his father was a priest, or well, whatever he was, whatever he wasn't a Gazlan, right? Since I could say I bought it for you, that's a good chazaka. In other words, a Gazlan has no chazaka, right? Because he could forcibly take it away, even if there's witnesses that the protester admitted to the Gazlan, you bought it from me, that doesn't mean anything. But if his son has no chazaka, why? Because he comes with the claim that I got it from my father. Yeah, but your father has no claim. Let's say the son said, the son says, I got it from my grandfather who wasn't the Gazlan. That's a good claim. I got it from my grandfather because he could have said, I bought it for you. He himself is not a Gazlan. Then he says, that's one way to learn. Or another way to learn is that in that case, another lashon is that the Ben Rosh Gazlan if he comes with his father. So there's two ways to learn. In other words, some have the girsa that the Ben Beno Shel Gazlan, even though we said in the Brisa that Ben Beno Shel Gazlan has a chazaka, has no chazaka rather. The Gazlan has no chazaka. The Ben Gazlan has no chazaka. The Ben Beno does have a chazaka. So we said sometimes some have the girsa that sometimes he also doesn't have a chazaka if he comes with a claim of his grandfather who was a Gazlan. Or sometimes he does have a chazaka if he comes with the claim of his grandfather. The Ben Gazlan comes with that his grandfather was not in the mafia. Either way, it's understood that a Gazlan has no chazaka, and if the son comes with the claim of the father who was a Gazlan, also has no chazaka. If he comes with his own claim, then he could be believed. And his grandson, if he comes with the claim of his father who was not a Gazlan, he was a Ben Gazlan, that's also legitimate. But if he comes with the claim of his grandfather, he comes with the claim of a Gazlan, that's not a chazaka. At the 2.7 lines from the bottom of the page. We said yard Let's say he's an omen. We said there's no chazaka there. Why? Because unless he has a legitimate claim, the guy's got proof to purchase that he bought it. Fine, but normally at omen, you give him an item. We had a machlokas before. Do you have to have proof that item that you gave it to him as a to wash your clothes or to tailor the clothes? That was Rabba's opinion, but we came out like Abaye, and that's not a machlokas really Abaye and Rav. Because Abaye and Rav we always pass like Rav except for 6 cases. It's really a machlokas with Rebbe with the Rabba Abaye's Rebbe. That as long as he saw it in his rishus, that's good enough. If you don't, we said in the last couple of days, we said if you come with the dry cleaners and you say, "Where's my garment?" and he denies having the garment, if you have no proof that you gave it to him, you can't see in his possession, then he has a claim. But if he says, "What's this garment doing here? You have my garment," that's not a chazaka because I gave it to you to wash or to clean. So Tanarabanam, let's say he went out of the dry cleaning business, right? So, right, Naftali, we know people who were once in the dry cleaning business and now they're not in the dry cleaning business anymore. So when he was a dry cleaner, he has no chazaka, right? But now that he's not in that business anymore, he could have a chazaka. Okay, that's not a big chiddush. If he's not in that job anymore, he has a chazaka. Oris ain't chazaka. Again, a sharecropper has no chazaka. But if he's no longer in that business, he's no longer sharecropper. Not a big chiddush there. Ben shecholak, a son who left his father's estate. A son lived with his father, even if he was over bar mitzvah. He was, when he was living with his father. So then you can't say, "Hey, this is my land because I've been on the land." Of course, you're living in your father's house. How could you claim a chazaka? You have permission to be there. You're living off your father. Go out and earn a living on your own. Let's say he went out and earned a living on his own. He wasn't living with his father anymore, right? He wasn't. Then he could have a chazaka. He's not there. The fact that he's on the land doesn't have chazaka. What's the chiddush there? We'll see that. A woman who got divorced, right? So she's like anybody else. So in all these cases, and the chazaka, ben shechalak, a son who left his father's possessions, left his father's estate, his father's house, and a woman who got divorced like anybody else. Meaning, we said before, can a wife say she has a chazak in her husband's thing? It's mine? Because of course not. She's living off her husband. And if a husband can't claim, a husband who's entitled to use the nichsei mulug of his wife while they're married, or if it's some bar, so if it's in the he can't claim it's mine because I've been living here for 50 years. Of course not. You're entitled to use it. But they got divorced. Let's say they got divorced. And the wife now, she went off on her own. She's divorced. And she gets into some fight with somebody else, with Yankel. And Yankel claims that the land she's on belongs to him. She says, no, it's hers. Can the husband testify? Can her ex testify for her? So he says, yes. Isha Garsha, a son left his father's house, and a woman who got divorced, like anybody else, they could testify for one another. We can assume that they're impartial. So the Gemara analyzes. If a son left his father's house, there's a chiddush there. You have to tell me that he could make a claim of a chazaka. If he's 3 years on his father's rishus and his father's field, and he says, I bought it from my father, but I don't have the document anymore. It's 3 years. That's a chazaka. The chiddush is, I might think that in this case, that that's not a chazaka. Since he's my son, even though he doesn't live in my house anymore, I let him stay on the land for a while. I don't mind. I let him stay there for free. But that's not a chazaka. Kamashma is a chazaka. Okay. Kamashma andalo. If a woman's divorced and her husband is now nothing between them, no financial dealing between her husband, her ex, and her, why would you think that he cannot testify on her behalf in a different case? Why isn't he impartial? He's not connected to her anymore. You say he could testify. What's the chiddush in that? Isn't it obvious? They have no longer financial interest anymore. Why could he testify? Why would you think that he couldn't testify? We say he could. Why would you think he couldn't? Elisha scholarship sheet. This is what street. No, you don't need it in a regular case. You need it in this case. The Megureshes, man, Megureshes. Speaking about a case where there's a suffix gerushin. How do you have a suffix gerushin? Could have many cases. The standard case of the Gemara is where he threw her the get in the Rishus Harabim, let's say, and it's right. It's a suffix. Did it get closer to her or closer to him? A person has their own Daled Amos from Rishus Harabim, so he had Daled Amos. He threw it to her. He didn't want to hand it to her. He threw it to her, and it landed in between them. And we're not sure, was it closer to her or closer? If it's closer to her, it's a get. If it's closer to him, if it's in her rishus, if it's her house, that her yard, yes, then it's hers automatically. Then she was megureshes because he could give it to her forcibly, minat Torah. Only midrabanan, and you have to give it to her with her consent. But midaraisa can force her if he threw it to her. So the question is, was it closer to her or closer to him? So it's a suffix. So what do you do in a suffix like this? And it like that, when it's a suffix of the divorce or not, says he still has to feed her. He's still chayiv in mizonos, what we call alimony, right? He has to give her mizonos because maybe they're still married. So you might think, since he has to give her mizonos, that therefore he let her stay on the land. Kamashmon, we don't say that. Says Rashbam. Rashbam Chaim said that Katya Gilvei. So therefore the Kiddush is Rashbam. Take a look at Rashbam from the top. Rashbam at the bottom says that isn't it obvious that she can make a chazaka, that the mecheskes b'nechsei bala, she can even make a chazaka in her husband's. In other words, her chazaka is a good chazaka, right? And he's in v'chein bala machs b'nechsei. Once they're divorced, it's not simply that he could testify for her. We were talking before about testifying on somebody's behalf. Here we're really talking about a chazaka. Can you make a chazaka in somebody else's? Can a son make a chazaka in his father's possession if he's not living in his house anymore? Yeah. Why not? They have no financial connection anymore. He's working for himself. The father's working for himself. You might think, well, the father's mochel. No, he can make a chazaka. And a husband who's divorced from his wife can make a chazaka in his wife's assets. She can make a chazaka in his. Obviously, she can't be an aid. A woman can't be an aid. But Rashbam on the page says, isn't it obvious that she can make a chazaka in his possessions, and she can make a chazaka, and he can make a chazaka in hers? Sharei sonin says that. Once they're divorced, they hate one another. He should have said something, right? The assumption is that this idea of amicable divorce doesn't mean much, right? Usually when they're divorced, they're not connected. It doesn't mean they really hate each other, but it means that they're not favoring one another anymore. So it's legitimate. If she was on his land for 3 years, he should have said something. Why would you think he's mochel? They're divorced now. Oh, they're not really divorced. They're only partially divorced. Says Rashbam on Amid Beis at the top. Megureshes, when Megureshes go in Zarklo get. Before he gets suffer blow, the Balachayv Nosel, Adi Avlik, until he gives her get Vadai. Krabzeir, he might say, even she's since she's technically still his wife, he has to feed her. Now, if she went and married somebody else, it would be a suffix if there was a good marriage or not, right? If they had a kid, it would be a suffix mamzer, because you're not sure if she's divorced. But since he's chayiv to feed her, maybe he left her a piece of land, she should feed off this land. Then it is a chazaka. Even if they're partially divorced, he wouldn't give her a whole piece of land and say, "Okay, eat this." He meant to divorce her. Now he's saying, you know what? The Adam say we're not sure if they were divorced, so he still has to feed her until he gives her a proper divorce. Maybe they're out of town now and he can't give her the divorce directly or whatever. So would he give her a whole piece of land to live? No, he wouldn't do that. Since he wanted to divorce her, he doesn't like her anymore. He's not going to give her kaklim. He's going to give it to her. Just he's going to do the bare minimum. Only when Besson forces him to, he says, I divorced her already. No, you didn't really divorce her. You owe her the money. Oh, how much do I owe her? How much do I owe her for feeding her? So he's only going to do it with a court order. So he's not going to give her a piece of land. And therefore, if once they're divorced, even if they're partially divorced, they are not they could make a chazaka in one another's land, and if she was on his land for 3 years, that would be a chazaka, and the same thing if he was on her land, because they don't like each other anymore, and therefore they wouldn't be mocha and say, yeah, you can stay on the land, I don't mind. Wouldn't do that. Amar of Nachman. Nachman says Allah like this. Amar li Huna kulin shevi raya. All these people that we say there's no chazaka, and Oris and Uman, Gazlan, if they brought proof like Adam or a star, then it would be a right, right? If they say, listen, I bought it from you, maybe the chazaka is not a chazaka, even 3 years on the land is not a chazaka. But if they had proof, like Adam who saw him buy it, or a star, would be a chazaka. Mabidin saw the beyond would give the field to the person to the person who claims to have a chazaka. That's fine with an Uman and Oris. But a Gazlan Shevi Raya, even if a Gazlan brought proof Adam, ain't a raya. Ain't rayas a raya, it's not proof. You know why? So you wouldn't give the Gazlan land. You wouldn't give it to him, as we said before, that he forcibly took it and he scared them into admitting, yeah, you bought it from me. Mike Mush, what's the chiddush in this thing? The first part is obvious. You have proof, right? You have proof that Shtar or Adam, that's all proof, it's obvious. The chiddush is the seifa, that a Goslin, even if he has proof, even if he has a Shtar or Adam, it's also, that's also what's the chiddush in that. Taninu, we learned that at Brisa. Lakach mi Sekrikan. Sekrikan were murderers. Goyish are murderers who would take the land. Originally, they were told, you better murder, or else if you don't murder the Jews, we're going to murder you. Later on, they said, well, we'll pay you 4 shekels for every Jew that you killed. Later on, they said, no, don't kill them. But they were killers. So if you bought a field, let's say a Jew bought a field from these Goyish killers who had taken the land forcibly from some other Jew, even if afterwards you went and bought it from the Balabayas, you asked him for a shtar, let's avoid the sale is void because he took it. The land was forcibly taken away from him without payment. So even if you got a shtar afterwards from the guy from the Jew who was taken from, it was abducted from him, right? So it doesn't mean anything. So what's the chiddush in that? If you buy a field from a Goslin or somebody who stole it, and you know they stole it, they didn't pay for it. So of course that's no good. Even if he has a shtar or Adam, but we assume was forcibly taken away. There's a lot of pukim rab. This is from Rab. This is what we say, that if you bought it from the Sekrikan, you bought it from the murderers, and then you went and asked the original owner, "Can I have a shtar? Can you confirm the sale?" It doesn't work. You don't own it. That's only if the Jew who was taken from says, "Okay, go make a chazaka and it's yours." But if he wrote a shtar, if he gave you a bill of sale, then it is good. That's what Rav said. Kamash Malan, so Rav is teaching me no. Even if the Jew who the field was taken from originally by the Sekrikan gives you a bill of sale now, also you didn't acquire it. Unless he says the field is yours, here's a shtar, and you know what? If it's taken away from you, I will mortgage all my properties to you. Then it shows that he really admitted that he's selling it to the person, right? And even if then it's a proper sale. Now in all these cases, did he pay for it or not? Did the goyim pay for it? Did the Goslin pay for it or not? So or did the Sekrikan normally didn't pay for it? But here he says, you know what? Shmuel says, even if you get a shtar and it wasn't paid for, but if he says he mortgaged all his property, then he admitted to giving it away. Rabbi Messiah, Rabbi finishes off this memra of Rav Huna, Mishmei Rav Nachman, Karka Einlo. Yes, he doesn't get the Karka. In other words, if you bought it from the Sekrikan and then you went and got a shtar from the Jew who was originally taken from, you don't get it. Avamos Yeshlo. But the Goslin can get his money back if he gave money. Meaning the deal was off, but if he paid money for it, he can get his money back. If you know that he paid for it, the Adam say, yeah, we saw him count out the money. That in front of us, yeah, the Jew admitted that it belonged to the Goy, or that he just admitted, yeah, that it's yours. Low. That doesn't mean it could have kind of like Rav Kana said, we had an Amanal, the Amar, Rama of Kana. If he wouldn't have been moted to the Goslin, to the Goy, to the Sekrikan, that yeah, it belongs to you, that I sold it to you, he would have taken him and put him in bondage. He would have taken his chamor and given them to government service, taken away. Now here Rabbi said that even if he paid money for it, the deal is off and he gets his money back. But that's not the halacha. Because Rav Huna holds, like we're going to see now, Rav Huna, 4 lines from the bottom of Amid Beis, and we have a rule like this. If you hung him up and he forced the sales, in other words, this is we say that a Goslin has no chazaka because he stole it. He stole the land. You say the guy that he stole from admitted that he bought it. Yeah, but he admitted out of fear. But let's say the Goslin took the money. The Goslin took his money and paid for it. He forcibly sold it. Not he forcibly stole it, but he forced him to take the money. He says, take the money. I don't want to sell it. Too bad. Here's the money. And the guy took the money. It's a sale. Taluya means like you hung him up. This is a famous sugya. Taluya b'zav and svina. When you force a forced sale, not a forced stealing. He forced him selling. He forced him. I'm taking it by force and I'll pay you for it. Is that a sale or not? So Rav Huna says it is. Rav Bibi says if he forced him No, you can just take the money back. Yes, it's money back, but it's not a sale. Rav Huna says, no, it is a good sale. My time, called the Mazman Inish, listen to this, called the Mazman Inish, anybody who sells something, he's always forced. He loved the honest if he would not be forced, person sells his house. He wants to buy a bigger house, a newer house, right? Why didn't he just keep the old house and buy the new one too? Forget about the capital gains issue and all that kind of stuff. Because he had to sell the first house in order to get the money to buy the new house. That's usually what happens, right? He says, when you sell something, people don't want to sell their assets. If he was forced because he wanted to buy something else. Okay, he forced himself. Any sale, you're forced. Any case where you're forced, any case where you sell something, you're always forced to do it in some way. And still it's a sale. I didn't want to sell my old house. I wanted to buy and keep both houses, but I couldn't buy both. So I couldn't hold on to both. I couldn't buy the second one without selling the first one. Okay, it's still a valid sale, even though I didn't really want to sell my original house, but I had to sell it, buy the new one. Yes, I was forced there too. So it's still a sale. It's not the same. Isn't it different in internal force, an internal force versus an external force? For one thing, I forced myself because I wanted to buy the new house. I sold the old house. Wanted to buy a new car. I sold the old car. Forced myself. That's different than somebody else forcing me into a sale. A gossip coming and saying, "Here, take the money. I'm taking your car. Take your money."
For example, let's say you have the house. Someone says to you don't sell to me such and such, you're going to build a $10,000 apartment building right next to you.
Okay, so in a case like that, if you don't sell it to me, I'll force you. But if he paid him a legitimate, fair price for whatever he stole, we're saying it's a good sale. He might force him anyway. No, if it's not a fair price, he didn't pay for it. That's not paying for it. You can't say, "Listen, the house is worth $1 million. I'll give you $10,000 for it." With a gun, that means he didn't pay for it. He has to pay. He has to pay what do we go for on the market? So, but if you're forced to sell it, we're saying now, if you're forced to sell something and they paid you for it, it's a valid sale. The sale takes effect. Anybody, when you sell something, you're forced into it. So Gemara says, yeah, but it's different if you forced yourself versus somebody else forcing you. Dilma, shiny, and Ella, that's not the reason. The reason it's a good sale is not because you're always forcing. Every sale is a forced sale. That's not the reason. Ella Ketatanya, Yakr Boso. The pasuk says at the beginning of Vayikra, right at the beginning, it says, if you bring a carbon, that you bring Nola. The third pasuk in Sefer Vayikra says, Imola carbano, if you're bringing a carbon, minabakar from the cattle, zachar tam, and you bring it, you have to bring a zachar tam, you have to bring an unblemished male. An ola animal is always not a bird. An ola animal is always a zachar. El pesach yakri boso. So the pasuk says, zachar tamim yakri venu. You should bring it near. You should offer it. Zachar tamim. Then it says, El pesach and the same pasuk says yakri boso. Why does it say yakri? It already said Yakri Venu in the same pasuk. Why does it say Yakriboso? Malamed, we're at the top of Mem Ches Manal. Yakriboso, Malamed Shekofano, so you force him. Meaning once he made an oath and says, I'd like to give a carbon. I haven't been such a good guy. I want to find atonement by God, even though I didn't do a specific sin. I want to offer this carbon. Yakriboso Malamed Shekofano so. Yaakov, what's the extra Yaakov? So it already says Yaakov Benu. Yaakov, so he can be forced to give it. Let's say he says, I don't want to give it now. You force him. Literally against his will, he doesn't want to give it. You're stealing the animal from him? No. It says Yaakov, so lirtzono, with his consent. So how does that work? How does it work? You're forcing him and he consents. The answer is Haketzat. How does that work? You force him until he says, yeah, I agree. So what do you see? That when you force somebody until he agrees, it's okay, it's a good deal. So just like you see there by the carbon, the same thing when somebody forcibly buys this land from you. He forcibly buys it, he pays you for it. So the Gemara says, how can you compare the two? The doma shiny also maybe kapara. He wants a kapara. He first said, I'm going to bring a carbon. Then he changed his mind, I don't have the money right now. Then you forced him, you said, you have to bring it. By the shoulders for golem, you have to bring it. So you forced him. So why is it good? Because you forced him until he said, I agree. Yeah, but he agreed because he wants a kapara. Here, the guy didn't want to sell his house or sell his car. So how can you prove from there that a forced sale is a good sale? Elam is seifa. From the seifa of that price, it says over there, let's say the Bezdin says a woman comes to court and says her husband has got is a leper, or he's got he's disfigured, and I can't stay with him. So the Bezdin can force the husband to give the get. In halacha, the husband has to give the get. The court just says can't say you're divorced or annul it. Even the annulment that the Gemara talks about in Gimel Lamidal, there is only under certain cases. So but they can force him to give the get. So you force him because he has to agree. You can't force him against a Bezdin. We'll see on tomorrow's Gemara. A goyim can't force you, right? A goyim can't force you to give a get. But if a Bezdin forces you, you force him. How does that work? Isn't it a get mooses and a forced get? If people go over to a guy and they at gunpoint say give her a get or we'll shoot you, that's not a get. So how does a Bezdin work? Because a Bezdin, you assume that Bezdin did it al das chachamim, you force him until he agrees. So you see also that you can be forced, a forced sale, just like a forced get is a get. If it's forced by Bezdin, a forced sale is also a sale. So there it's simply because he knows deep down he wants to listen to what the Chacham said. The Bezdin told him to sell, to give her a get. So he wants to listen to the Chacham, just like he wanted to get an atonement. Even though he didn't want to do it now, but again, he agreed because he wants to do the mitzvah, listen to Chacham. So how do you know that a forced sale is a good sale? You can't see it from the fact that he himself forces himself to sell his house when he wants to buy a bigger one, or from the fact that he has to force him to bring a carbon or to give a get, because those are different cases. Ella svara, it's a svara. Svaru. Agav onse gomro makna, it's just a svara. Even though he was forced, but he said, okay, I'll sell it. At the end of the day, he got the money. In other words, the money could buy the house, the money could buy the car, get on the car, go in the house. If you got full value, I'm not talking about where you offered him $50,000 for $1 million house. The house was worth $1 million, and they gave him $1 million. So even though he was forced, at the end, in his mind, he agreed to it. And that's the svara of Tluya B'Zavin Zvinas Vinay. Rav Bibi disagreed. Rav Bibi said, no, the money goes back. It's not a good sale. Rav Huna says, Tluya B'Zavin Zvinas Vinay, and that's how we paskin, right? And Rashbam says, Rav Bibi Tluya B'Zavin Lo Zvinas Vinay. Behind the come on, the Rav Huna less like Rav Bibi. Rav Huna doesn't hold the Rav Bibi, but we hold even if a Goslin paid money for it from Adam, that's good proof. In other words, if he actually paid money for it, we said a Goslin doesn't have a chazaka, but if Adam say he paid money for it, because if you forcibly bought something from Zoni, you paid him full value, it's a good sale. All right, we'll pick up here tomorrow from Mosif, about the 8th line down on the page. Have a good day. Shavua tov l'kulam. B'sorot tovot.